Yo, 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 it's digi-nee, aka Baroness Grey, aka the Golden Witch, fucking around in Pokemon Heart Gold. Why? Because I wanted to roleplay as one of my personal icons, Sabrina, the psychic trainer, from Red and Blue. And also in this game, actually, because I through the Poke Thoughts series that I was doing, where I was rewatching Pokemon, revisiting the Sabrina episodes, I realized that I had those on VHS as a kid and watched them many times, and that I had related to Sabrina in a way that I could not really grasp as a kid. Not only because I kind of did not really allow myself to project onto female characters, and even though I would refuse to watch shows that in my mind were for girls, like say Sailor Moon, but I would watch Pokemon and it had girls in it who I could admire, and I didn't connect with Misty because I saw her as just kind of a bitch, which is ironic because I think I broke this down in one of the other videos I recorded, that I am myself a tsundere, and the reason I didn't connect with a lot of characters who have that kind of aggressive attitude is that I am also aggressive in that way. I also have that aggression as a result of sensitivity, I'll put it that way, as a result of the expectation of sensitivity, but because of the fact that I was projecting onto, Ash as a kid, I saw, Misty as being oh, well, she's just, she's just being a bitch. But then it's when you grow up and you appreciate why she's acting that way. It's oh, okay, well, no, Ash is being an idiot, at least that's how I feel about it. But it's just, it's funny to think about that, I was exposed to these characters, and I always thought Sabrina was cool, and I liked the idea that she kind of sort of has this regressed childhood personality that exists inside this fucking toy box that she traps people in to fuck with them and stuff, and she barely speaks. She's just I mean, when I was rewatching the show, because I've been on my big everything is autism kick, I was just oh, this is just autism, because I do think that Japan they do use psychic powers as a deliberate metaphor for autism. It's sort of Japan being as it is a society that was hyper impressionistic for its entire history until World War II, and they punished themselves by becoming a hyper lexical society, and that had its own repercussions and drawbacks. It allowed them to become competitive in the capitalist society, but to suppress emotions. And I think that as this new generation of of kids who are capable of achieving this hyperlexicality, but at the cost of having to completely numb their emotions. It's the only people they can communicate with are other people who feel like them, and it's you have a psychic level of understanding, and this is represented through psychic powers. At least this is the way that anime seems to present the metaphor throughout the late 80s and 90s media. So Sabrina, and as particularly the psychic characters and trainers in Pokemon, they're always kooky, fucking oddball, new type, weird people. They're always people in strange outfits with strange powers. Some of them are good, some are evil, but they're all fucking psychics. So yeah, I just think that Pokemon really flirts with that metaphor a lot, that the people who have the most understanding of other people, who could read the minds of others, also behave the most incomprehensibly because of the way that they react to to having such powerful impressions of the people around them. And I think that the creators of Pokemon are psychic types themselves, and that's why Pokemon is so fucking successful. It's an extremely effective distillation of their understanding of the world. I was watching it, I connected with Sabrina on the rewatch, and it heavily inspired the character of Soraya in my book, Kusomega, in book 2. So, like, I wanted there to be, like, a deadpan girl and a beast girl lolly. That was, like, the two things I knew had to be in volume 2. So, with my deadpan girl, I was like, okay, well, I don't remember if it was, I think, like, shortly thereafter having that idea, I decided on the idea that in this world there would literally be, like, a psychic power that is autism. Like, just taking that metaphor to the extreme and just being like, yes, like, the more autistic you are, the more psychic powers you have in this world. So Soraya is the most autistic and therefore has the most psychic powers. And, like, ultimately, Soraya is sort of based on the way that I acted as a kid. That, like, you know, I saw myself as very intelligent. I was very successful in school. People, like, treated me as though I was, like, this super smart kid, but I was completely naive and oblivious and just, like, took everything literally and at face value. And, you know, it wasn't until my teen years that I started to, like, even develop, like, an understanding of how naive I was, you know, that, like, people literally do not say what they mean, or, like, are not true to their intentions all the time, you know. And I think I was only able to learn that because in going through puberty, I felt such a disconnect with my body that I myself had to now, like, be a liar, you know, about how I felt, you know, like, my body no longer reflected how I felt inside in the way that it had before, at least in my own mind. So, you know, it's like, to me, it's like that's the activation, like in Carrie, you know, like there's always something that activates your latent psychic abilities, and you just go fucking crazy and just try to destroy everyone, you know. So yeah, I love Sabrina. I based Soraya on, like, the cross section of emotions between me and Sabrina, and also her design is heavily based on her. And when I came up with the design for Baroness Grey, I wasn't really trying to base it on Sabrina in particular. The original drawing I made does not look like her. It's particularly the hairstyle is very different. You know, I wouldn't have thought of the same connection. But one of the first artworks made of the character, because I showed it to the artist Plunder, Princess Plunder Phonics on YouTube, or Ethernet Plunder Phonics on Twitter. And the artwork that they gave me, which is the one I'm using as my avatar and channel banner now, did convey, like, that same energy as character Sabrina, except for with, like, more of a smile, you know, like, as if Sabrina had grown up to become a decent person, like she does at the end. Like, you know, at the end of the arc, she does, I think, have a smile on her face for, like, the first time. And you know, it's like it's like, oh, it's not that she couldn't smile, it's just that she, you know, didn't understand that she's supposed to. So, you know, yeah, so I like Sabrina, and I like psychic-type Pokemon, and I also wanted to make, like, a team of, like, dual-typing psychic Pokemon. So, like, each Pokemon on my team that I have a list of all the psychic Pokemon that are dual-type in all of the games. The first one that I can get in this game is Xatu, or Natu rather, but I haven't gotten to the point where you catch it yet. But I committed to only catching Pokemon that can learn psychic moves. So I chose Chikorita for my starter because of the fact that she can learn psychic moves. Yes, I know that Baroness here, the Chikorita, has a male symbol next to her name, but she was only assigned male at birth. And so, yeah, Chikorita here, can learn psychic moves and is also a fucking tank. So it's good to have her around. And then I also have... Yes, so I've got about an hour. Because I did the whole bullshit beginning part of this game where you have to fucking run back and forth to get the stupid egg. But yeah, I also have... Oh, wait, I haven't caught anything yet. That's right. I was going to catch a hoot hoot, but I haven't actually done it yet because I haven't found one that was at the level that I wanted them to be at, i.e. above level 3. Okay, well, I guess I have to catch a hoot hoot if I want to have a... Because hoot hoot has, in spite of being a normal type Pokemon, or bird, I guess, normal flying... has a shit ton of psychic moves, so and I also love Hoot Hoot, so it would be very appropriate for my team. But we're going into the Sprout Tower for now to figure out if there's anything I can fucking... I think you can catch Ghastlies here, and I'm pretty sure they know psychic moves, so that would also be sick. Ghastly is cool. But yeah, so I have like a team plan of what I want to go for in this game, but I will not spoil it, as I would like to just target those Pokemon and obtain them. Rattata, I don't think that Pokemon knows any psychic moves, nor do I want it on my team, because it's a fucking stupid mouse. So, yeah, I guess I've finished explaining why I'm playing Pokemon Heart Gold and why I'm trying to catch Psychic-type Pokemon, but also playing with the Grass-type at the moment. Effectively enough. So, I have this issue of... I have ideas constantly. They're all valid. They're all good. Some will obviously be popular videos. Some obviously won't. Some obviously will be fulfilling videos. Some obviously won't. Some are in the middle somewhere. And when I have too much stuff going on in my life, then videos that seem plausible but don't get done just disappear. They go by the wayside. The thoughts I have about the show eventually evaporate into the ether. So, like, I watched Stop Hibari-kun because of the fact that last year, May, my SEO goddess, advised me to make a video for LGBT month, for Pride month. She was like, that's what's going on right now. What can you do for Pride month? And I was like, no sweat. I'm a Yuri fan. I can easily make 5 Yuri classics that you should watch for Pride month. Bam, I got it out. It wasn't that successful at first. Eventually it was. Sick. Then I think I talked about this in a different video. I think I talked about this in a different episode of Way of Ever Branching Paths. So maybe I shouldn't tell this story, but point being that I was going to make a top 5 trans anime, but I haven't seen most of the shows. I didn't have time to watch them all before the end of the month. Now, I could make an Otsuganzo tape about Hibari-kun, but the thing is I don't have a central thesis. And, like, for me, when I write a script, I want it to be tight. I want it to really make a point. I don't really like writing scripts where it's just like, okay, I watched this show, here's all the notes I took about it in the time I was watching it. Like, I really would prefer to do that kind of loose discussion on a show like Content or on just a Let's Play. And, like, Content will be returning sooner than later because it's only a few weeks before, before we're ready to reinvigorate it. We'll put it that way. But, I'm excited for the possibilities. But I probably wouldn't talk about an old-ass show that I watched with May that's 35 episodes long on Content. So, point being, I have thoughts on Stop Hibari-kun, not enough to make a cohesive point about. I don't want them to go by the wayside because I hold on to it trying to wait for there to be an opportunity to make a good video. So I'm just going to talk about it in this one. So Stop Hibari-kun, first of all, is written by an author who has a Toko Toko interview, which is a phenomenal YouTube series. I think it probably... is also aired on, like, TV in Italy or France or something. I don't know where the hell Toko Toko comes from, but, like, somehow it interviews Japanese creators, and they really have, like, deep pulls. And It's been really helpful for me as somebody who cares about a lot of really fucking obscure creators to, be able to hear from them. And they happened to interview the creator of Stop Hibari-kun, who said in no uncertain terms that their drawings are all come from the place of wishing they had been born a girl, wishing that they had been, female from the start, and the insecurity over having been born a man, and just like literally creating these characters as a means of getting to, express femininity through the lens of a creation that you made, like basically getting to show what you wish your life looked like, through art, which is something that I obviously appreciate as an artist myself. But I've always been very obsessed with the idea of having people who can understand me past the artifice of the art. Like, and it's not that I need a lot of people to. I'm really actually not very interested in being famous. In fact, if you can't tell from the way that I'm releasing all of these videos, I'm kind of trying to shrink my audience. Because there are certain people who say things like, literally, I will watch as much content as you put out because you're my favorite creator. Things you say mean the most to me. Just give me more and more and more, and it will mean more to me. And I think, okay, well, those people are reliable. They're going to, like, even if I can't rely on them for money, I can rely on them to give me what I want out of my content, which is a relationship with the viewer where, we both learn something from each other about why we feel the way we feel, So, like, in that sense, I feel like the best way to do my job is to just, like, make as much content as possible so that I'm as much on the same page with my audience as possible, and we can get as much out of, out of the content relationship, the parasocial relationship, if you will, as possible, I don't even consider it parasocial because in my mind, if it's not negative, then it's not parasitic. It's just social, and I don't consider fans getting something out of me and me not necessarily getting as much out of them to be parasitic because, like, they're not taking anything from me, like, it's one thing if they are, and so, there are fans who will take something from me, but, like, on the whole, I gain more than I lose, and the more I scare away the parts of my audience who have been making demands of me, who have made me insecure about my content all this time, like, well, if those people are making me insecure, then I don't need them around, like, I should, focus my content in a way that, the people surrounding me are the people I want to be surrounded with, I guess. So anyways, Stop Hibari-kun is about a male to female transgender person who is probably like in middle school, maybe early high school. I think they're in middle school in the show. They're not very old. The characters are like in their early teens, I think. But Hibari-kun, or Hibari-chan, as she is known at school, completely lives her life as a woman. And at no point does anything masculine whatsoever. At no point is like presented as doing this as an act or as a gotcha. It's just, Hibari is just a girl. She just lives her life as a girl. She was surrounded by girls growing up. She admired girls, and so she decided to be one. And, at the start of the show, her dad has a huge problem with this, and there are, like, there are jokes at the start of this show that would definitely make certain audience members uncomfortable. And, when you're in that state, because the show is, I wouldn't say it's raunchy, but it is, like, it's clearly written by somebody who has a edgy sense of humor, and they're kind of toning it down for the sake of it being, this was a Shonen Jump manga, So it's not like crazy over the top edgy, but it has humor that, that for a trans person would be taken as dark, but is dark because the author, really feels these emotions and is conveying them sincerely. So like, as long as you, I guess the reason that I felt the need to specify that the author themselves had those feelings is that having that faith in the material, I think, is important for Hibari-kun, where like, I first saw the first episode back when that was the only episode that had been subtitled back in 2009, and I wrote a blog post about it where I was describing it as a quote unquote trap show that I was really into, because at the time I saw myself as essentially relating to what I called traps. That's the only term I had for it, and those were really important to me in identifying the idea that like there was a form of like that. I don't know, I guess in some way it was just like easier for me to accept the idea that like I could have these feelings of like wanting to look like a woman if there is such a thing as, a titled category of boy who wants to look like girl, just because like, the trans experience was not something that was like cataloged publicly, at least within my purview, at the time that I was having these thoughts that might have led me down a more concrete path, but nonetheless, Stop Hibari-kun, it's in that flirtatious realm, and like there are elements of the show that are quote unquote problematic for sure, not just in the humor around the sexuality and transness of the character, which I actually think is handled very well. There's a lot of racial humor that is definitely like, risque, that a lot of people would not find funny. And the show is also just hit or miss in general. Like, it's just not always funny. It's not always good. There are some episodes that are just bad. There's only a few of them, but like, it's 35 episodes. Most of it's good. And it has some episodes that are really heartfelt and really like just paint these characters so lovably and so endearingly. And like the way that it evolves in its tone over the course of it, you can sort of feel the way that the author was like coming to terms with their own feelings, because like, in the Toko Toko interview, they describe like drawing Hibari over and over again and having this feeling of like trying to make her as beautiful as possible, just like obsessively trying to make her beautiful. And like eventually Hibari-kun was canceled by the author after like I want to say a year or two. Like it only ran for like a few volumes because of the fact that the author just didn't want to do shonen manga anymore, or not shonen, but in particular, but weekly manga anymore. And Hibari-kun was their second weekly manga. The first one had already been a long runner for Shonen Jump. But like in the process of like becoming obsessed with drawing the girls as beautifully as possible, the author eventually became somebody who only does one-shots or art books and more like pop art, that is able to be more focused on like absolutely perfect, clean line art and colors and all that kind of stuff, because their style is extremely clean. And like, but with Hibari-kun, like over the course of the series, the dad becomes like more and more acclimated to seeing Hibari as a woman, where like early on he always like snaps and is like, oh, you're a pervert, you're disgusting, and like tries to basically assault Hibari, and Hibari always kind of teases this idea that the dad is only like this because he secretly wants to fuck Hibari, which is a hilarious running gag throughout the show, in my opinion. But there's a lot of like testy stuff in it, especially for a fucking show for teens, and like there's also a lot of hints at what the author's real taste is, because the author themselves is, relatively large, and like I think I see a lot of connection between the way that they present themselves and the way that Guillermo del Toro like presents himself in relationship to monsters in his work, is a lot of like the same kind of projections that the author of Hibari-kun does onto Yakuza. That like I think like the author clearly is attracted to big Yakuza guys, like bear gay Yakuza tough guy, like emotional, cool, tough guys. And like that's their aesthetic. And like, you know, even though their modus operandi for drawing is mostly getting to draw girls because they themselves, you know, feel like a girl inside. You know, all of the non-girl characters in the show besides the main character are like burly, emotional, hyper masculine, you know, Yakuza members. So like, and they're always presented in an extremely endearing light as like, you know, as like just characters that you can root for and love, even though they're violent maniacs. And like, there's, you know, in the subtext, you could look into a lot of reading into abusive relationships and S&M and like people who seek abuse in their relationship, you know. There's just a lot of, you know, sexual and LGBT experiences that I think are like coded in the narrative or in the symbolism or just random off jokes that are thrown in that, you know, that are just signals to people who will get it and nobody else, you know. It's definitely a very new typey kind of show. There's lots of just like random stuff that goes on. And it is also a gag manga, like at its core. Like it's very similar, like Ranma 1/2, I think, took a lot of influence from Hibari-kun, especially in the setting and the basic setup of the story. But like Ranma even was more like kind of serious and grounded, where Hibari is like really quite ridiculous. It's almost like Gintama, in a way, or Ninja Nonsense. It kind of reminds me of as well. So like, you know, it is a little bit more of like an outlandish gag comedy, but it can calm down and deliver these like really heartfelt moments. And like, I would say that the cast is a little imbalanced in that, like, Hibari has 3 sisters. The youngest sister is fucking insanely adorable, has all kinds of great episodes and moments. But the older 2 sisters are kind of like, I don't know, they have episodes to themselves, but they more revolve around their relationships than around the characters themselves. So they don't really end up coming into their own as characters. I've got a fucking, my Baroness is evolving, baby. Yes. Yes. Yes, Bayleaf is sick. This is a good development. Apparently the way I battle is elegant. Amazing. I barely pulled through that fight. If I didn't have those potions, if I didn't snap into paying attention to what I was doing, I very possibly could have been terminated. But thankfully I realized the poison powder, you know, before they put me to sleep strat. So we made it through, gang. Alright. So yeah, Hibari-kun, it's got lots of little calling cards, lots of little references. The color design of the show is fantastic. You know, like, the artwork is inconsistent in the sense that there are some episodes that look bad and some episodes that look good. But when the show looks good, it looks really good. And the character designs are really great. Tons of just unique expressions. You know, there's not a ton of like animation or sakuga or anything, but when there, again, you know, anything there is looks good. So, yeah, it was just a delightful show to watch. Like, I enjoyed sitting, every episode I watched was just like, a pleasant, with the exception of like the 4 or 5 like really shitty ones, you know. And sometimes even if the episode wasn't like immediately great, it would like kind of come around by the end or something. So, you know, it was just consistently fun. I would say that its biggest weakness is weaker supporting cast. Its biggest strength is very strong central cast. Very empathetic, you know, storylines where even though it makes fun of people a lot and it is a gag manga, at the core it is very heartfelt, very sincere, very hopeful, and, you know, even if, you know, like there are characters in the manga who are clearly meant to be closer parallels to how the author actually sees themselves in real life, as opposed to, you know, the fictionalized, glorified vision of themselves that is Hibari. And like, the way that those characters are treated is very humane as well, where even though they are kind of made fun of, especially at the start of the series, like they have arcs of them learning to come out, learning to embrace their femininity or their homosexuality, which like most of the villains in the show, like the reason that they are villains is that they are repressing. Like they are people who are secretly some sort of LGBT, but because of their repression, they are putting on a face of being, you know, something else. And like that's usually like the resolution of the episode will involve sort of outing the villain, or, you know, seeing them evolve as they reappear throughout the series and all that, which is always a ton of fun. And like, you know, by the end of the show, like even again, Hibari's dad has like reached a point of like really defending Hibari as a daughter. You know, like get your hands off my daughter. My daughter! He becomes my daughter towards Hibari, which is fucking adorable. And yeah, the whole show is just really enjoyable. I gave it a 9 out of 10, and you know, I would have given it a 10 if not for the bad episodes that do exist, and the fact that it's not like, I mean, the shows I've given a 10 to are shows that are like mindgasms for me, where like every second that I watch I have to give my full attention because it's so incredible. With Hibari-kun, this is a show I could comfortably like kind of come in and out, you know, like kind of think about shit for a while and then kind of snap to attention when stuff's really going on, and then, you know, unexpectedly checked in the feels, you know, cunt punt in the feels right when you don't expect it. So yeah, Hibari-kun, great show. Don't know if I have much else necessarily to say about it. Like, there's lots of little things, and like I've been using images from it as thumbnails for the Befriending the Internet series, and you know, my intention is just to use every shot in the show that I think would make a good thumbnail. So well, I found the place where BPD hoes like me belong, which is amid the ancient ruins of the unknown, performing psychic rituals. So I will end this video. This was my introduction to the Pokemon footage that may occasionally arise in episodes of The Way of Ever-Branching Paths, and also my review of Hibari-kun, I guess. Thanks for watching.